with love, but time to battle, I'll find them all. I felt the whips and remember chains, but my soul has been forged by my father's flames. Fight your fears and heal your pain, and victory will be in your name.
I used to be weak, but I'm not weak no more. I found the strength of my ancestors deep down in my African core. I used to be frightened, I'm not afraid no more. The Father blessed me with the heart of a lion and a warrior soul. So no weapon that form against I shall not prevail, and no man that rise against I, that war they shall never win. 'Cause I will conquer, oh I will conquer, yes I will conquer them. Come on, let's conquer, oh I will conquer, rise up and conquer them. Tell them no retreat, no surrender. I shall fight till the end of days. I was born as a Makai warrior, and the Almighty God my blade. Fire burn all Satan carrier. Father loose all shackles and chain. This morning first thing as I wake up, King David turns Sam to the brain. Don't let your courage go down, keep it up. And if your heart rip up and stitch it up, don't let your faith them fall, pick it up. When my cup was empty, God fill it up. Don't take the devil contract, rip it up. And if your bad mind people to go meet it up, pass me the Congo drum and let me beat it up. God on my side, me no give it up. So no weapon that form against I shall not prevail. And no man that rise against I, that war they shall never win. 'Cause I will conquer, oh I will conquer, yes I will conquer them. Come on, let's conquer, oh I will conquer, rise up and conquer them.
Thank you, Father. I want to say thank you, Lord. You're everything, Father. Thank you. Father, you alone shall guide me. No man shall lead my path. In the wind I hear your quiet whispers, and you heal my broken heart. Even some of my friends turn enemies, and they pray for right to feel. And remember you gave us your only begotten son, but we gave him the wound of flesh. Send down your warriors with the hello, be carried down to the end of days. No matter how the devil try trick me, unto you my soul I will give. Father, I know this storm is coming, I can see the high tide raise. Without you there is no other. Could there be that realness my enemies, walls are bound to crumble, and to the floor their spears will fall. I've been made and sealed with love, but time to battle, I'll find them all. I felt the whips and remember chains, but my sword has been forged by my father's flames. Fight your fears and heal your pain, and victory will be in your name.
I used to be weak, but I'm not weak no more. I found the strength of my ancestors deep down in my African core. I used to be frightened, I'm not afraid no more. The Father blessed me with the heart of a lion and a warrior soul. So no weapon that form against I shall not prevail. And no man that rise against I, that war they shall never win. 'Cause I will conquer, oh I will conquer, yes I will conquer them. Come on, let's conquer, oh I will conquer, rise up and conquer them. Tell them no retreat, no surrender. I shall fight till the end of days. I was born as a Makai warrior, and the Almighty God my blade. Fire burn all Satan carrier. Father loose all
shackles and chain. This morning, first thing as I wake up, King David told Sam to the brain. Don't let your courage go down, keep it up. And if your heart rip up and stitch it up, don't let your faith them fall, pick it up. When my cup was empty, God fill it up. Don't take the devil contract, rip it up. And if your bad mind people to go meet it up, pass me the Congo drum and let me beat it up. God on my side, me no give it up. No weapon that form against us shall not prevail. And no man that rise against us, that war they shall never win. Because I will conquer, oh I will conquer, yes I will conquer them. Come on, let's conquer, oh I will conquer, rise up and conquer them. Thank you, Father. I want to say thank you, Lord. You are everything, Father. Thank you. Father, you alone shall guide me. No man shall lead my path. In the wind I hear your quiet whispers, and you heal my broken heart. Even some of my friends turn enemies, and they pray for right to feel. And remember you gave us your only begotten son, but we gave him the wound of lies. Send down your warriors with the hello, they carry down to the end of days. No matter how the devil try trick me, unto you my soul I will give. Father, I know this time is coming. I can see the high tide raise. Without you there is no other. Could it be that we decide? No weapon that form against us shall not prevail. And no man that rise against us, that war they shall never win. Because I will conquer, oh I will conquer, yes I will conquer them. Come on, let's conquer, oh I will conquer, rise up and conquer them. I am a man, I am a champion, I am a warrior. So who are you to tell me that I cannot make? Who are you to tell me that I am not the greatest thing that God ever created?
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. You're listening to Hard Talk Grenada. A very special good morning to those of you joining us on the various radio stations, whether it's 97.5 CitysoundFM or 89.5 CRFM, 91.9 and 91.5 RealFM Radio, 92.9 Cicero Radio broadcasting from Hillsborough, Carriacou, and of course 94.9 We Noise Radio out there in Brooklyn, New York. A very special good morning to those of you who are joining us on the live video stream, whether it's on Facebook, YouTube, or on Instagram. A very special good morning to you. It is a beautiful Tuesday morning in the Spice Isle of Grenada. I know you guys are not accustomed to hearing my voice on a Tuesday. Usually we reserve Tuesdays for the broadcasting of the post-cabinet brief, but that has been postponed until tomorrow, I believe, tomorrow at 10. And of course, the Ministry of Agriculture would be facilitating that post-cabinet brief. I believe that it was postponed to facilitate an event that is taking place at Silver Sands, Grenada, right? So don't worry, we are still having post-cabinet this week. It's just not happening today. And of course, my co-host is somewhere around there. To be honest, I'm not quite sure. But he will be joining us shortly to engage in conversation. This morning, I have something that is really burdening my spirit that I want to share with you guys. But I'm going to wait until he gets here because it really does tie into our conversation this morning. And I'm hoping that most of you who are tuning in, you would join in the conversation with us because it's going to be quite a conversation this morning, all right? I just want to share again with the general public the importance of getting vaccinated. I know I sit here and I preach about it every single day, and I'm going to sit and continue to preach about it every single day until we have achieved what we are expected to achieve or what we want to achieve, not only as a country, but as the world at large, we want to be able to achieve at least 80% vaccination of our people. And it is important. And some people may ask the question, well, why should I get vaccinated if I'm still going to get the virus anyway? I really do need to explain that again and again and again, that we get vaccinated not because we don't want to catch COVID, but we get vaccinated so that we don't get any debilitating diseases as a result of COVID-19. And I keep preaching that every single day, and I'm hoping that it would resonate with some or most of you as much as it can. We get vaccinated not just because we have to, but because we want to protect the people who are vulnerable in society, the people who are prone to severe disease as a result of catching COVID. You know, there are some people out there who cannot protect themselves. And as a result, it is our civic responsibility, it is our human responsibility to do what we can to protect those people who are immunocompromised, those people who are just not able to fight off this deadly disease, this deadly virus, all on their own. Our responsibility as a people, as a human beings, is to do what we can as a nation, as a world, as human beings, to help those people. So I would encourage as many of you as possible and as I can to get vaccinated. Go out there and do what you can to help those who can't help themselves. So today, Tuesday, I believe they're going to be at Radisson. I just want to pull it up real quick here just to make sure, right. So at Radisson, they'll also be vaccinating at all of the health centers. But remember that once you are going to get vaccinated at a health center, that you call in and make an appointment to have that done. And of course, they're going to be at the Bloodmobile. That's that big red and white bus in front of the Ministerial Complex cafeteria. They're going to be there today as well. Vaccinations are from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. in the afternoon. So we encourage each and every single one of you to make that conscious decision, get as much information as you can, and as is possible, to go out there and do what you can for yourself and for your country. And my co-host has blessed us with his present. Good morning, Mr. Bola.
Good morning, Ms. Duncan, and good morning to our listeners. My apologies. It was unavoidable. I was engaged in discussion or small meeting, probably you want to call it. Something of grave importance. I endeavored to complete what I was doing just before 10 o'clock, but it ran in over a few minutes. So my apologies to everyone, but I'm here, and of course I am ready to participate into this discussion.
Absolutely. And guys, I'm not going to say, the lines are open. It's an ongoing conversation. So you are free to, as soon as the conversation begins, you are free to call and of course give your 2 pence. And as we always say here, we're not the depository of all information, but we try our best to inform, to educate, and to listen to the opinions and views of everyone as much as is possible. Of course, as long as it's given in a respectful manner. I have to stress on that because sometimes. Mr. Bola, this morning, right, I was telling the general public that there was something, that burdened me quite a bit yesterday afternoon when I got home. And it's coincidentally, it kind of ties into what we're going to discuss here today as well. But it's something that I do think I need to bring to the attention of the general public, and hopefully to the ears of the right individuals, and hopefully into the hearts of some. It may touch a few people out there. And it has to do with a conversation that I had with my daughter when I got home yesterday afternoon. Usually we sit and we debrief for the day. We talk about things that happened during the day, things that we could, change tomorrow, and, things we could do differently, and so on. And in that little session that I was having with her, she mentioned to me that she was very sad. Today was a very sad day for her. And I asked her, well, what caused your day to be so sad? What caused your emotions to be so affected? And she said to me, there was, I'm getting all teary-eyed just talking about it, But she said to me there was a young lady in her class, was a little friend of hers, you know. She remembers her from going to Heinzie with her and so on. And she said to me, the young lady was crying in the class today. So she went to her and she asked her, you know, what was wrong. She was trying to ascertain, you know, what was the reason for her crying. And she said that, I'm sorry if I'm a bit emotional talking about it, but she said that she was a bit confused. She didn't know what to do. She felt so, you know, overburdened and stressed, and she felt like she wanted to kill herself. And my daughter is in Form 1, you know? And I mean, when she said it to me, it really broke my heart, you know? We're talking about a child that is 12 years old, that is just getting into secondary school, that is just starting off, not even a teenager, you know, that is just starting off with life. And there she is feeling so burdened that she feels like she has no other choice but to feel like she wants to commit suicide. And I asked her, I said, well, what did you do? She said, well, Mommy, I was so afraid. I didn't know what to do. So I took her to the school therapist. And she said to me, the young lady was saying to her, well, I want you to come with me. I want you to, you know, sit in the session with me. And I was really happy that she didn't go to the session, because as much as I am appreciative for the fact that she was able to be there for her friend, I feel like that is too much of an emotional burden for my daughter, you know? And it really touched me, Mr. Bola, because, you know, sometimes we go about our daily lives and we talk about a lot of things, we involve ourselves in a lot of things, and we don't take cognizance of the fact that our children are struggling too. Sometimes even more than we are struggling. They are struggling. They are battling with feelings and with emotions and problems of their own. And if we are not careful enough, if we are not conscious enough, if we don't pay enough attention, then we are going to start losing some of our young people in some very sad ways.
Sad story.
It is.
Did you get any more information on the outcomes of?
I didn't, because of course when I got home it was rather late, but I did ask Renelle to get a telephone number for the young lady, because she doesn't. She said she doesn't know if she has, you know, a cell phone or whatever. To get a number for her so that I can reach out to maybe the parents to see what assistance or support that, you know, I can provide. And I also asked of Renelle that she, you know, just be there for her, communicate with her, talk to her, you know, try to find out what is really going on with her, you know. But it's, Mr. Bola, it really, really, really broke my heart. This is something that I never thought as, you know, you hear about these things happening, you hear about different stories and so on about these things happening, but as a parent, I never thought that, you know, my daughter and I would have this kind of conversation. And, you know, I had to sit down with my daughter and say to her, you know, and explain to her that sometimes people go through things that we don't understand, you know, and she couldn't understand why this young lady was feeling this way, or why somebody would even want to think about doing something like that to themselves. But, you know, sometimes
it would be interesting, Ms. Duncan, to know what are the circumstances in the life of this young lady. Yeah. What has been happening or not happening? What are her that would cause her to be pushed to the point where she feels like that's suicidal. So I think it is a development that one needs to keep your thumb on. And more than, I will just advise that more than what you can do personally, maybe with contact information, there are people. I think the Ministry of Social Services has some counselors. I want to believe, I'm not sure about this one, but the Child Protection Authority may be able to give some assistance. And listeners, I'm saying that and talking about those people, not because you want to report or to get anyone into trouble, but it appears from what has been described that this is a teenager or a young person, a troubled youth that may be going now at this point in time through some trials and tribulations, dealing with issues that maybe they are not fully equipped to handle. She's not yet at the stage where she can handle, and really does need help, in my opinion. A lot of help, psychological and others. What has brought that on, maybe material or otherwise, we don't know, and I don't want to be too suggestive, but whatever brings it on are things that needs to be discussed. So, I would advise that you do as much as you can. Your daughter having reported that. If she is able to get you some contact information, you can speak to the child or with parents and probably see what other professional help that can be sought. Because as you so correctly say, there are so many of us, many people living at this time in this country and in several others that are overwhelmed with all sorts of issues. Some people take it for granted and they just take it as a joke in some instances that this pandemic is just a passing something, and we have not understood fully the gravity. In ways in which some people's life has been affected. Some people in this country and elsewhere have lost every means of making an income, of raising revenue to take care of themselves and their family. Some people have been living at the mercies of others for the last 12 months or so. And because my situation or your situation may be slightly better, it doesn't mean that everybody is of the same.
That's true.
And the kind of pressures that has been exerted on people, we have to become much more sensitive. And that is why sometimes when government speaks or government officials speaks about the fact that, hey, while we have an obligation and we are willing and we acknowledge that the 4% salary increase for public servants, teachers, police officers, and so forth is due. And belongs to them, and we have to do it. There are so many other people whom we have to look out for as a government that are not in a position on a day-to-day basis to fend for themselves. And we need to help them. Admittedly, we have an obligation to you, but we also do have an obligation, while not contractual or written, but to make sure that others survive. And we have to become much more sympathetic. We have to be our brother's keeper. We have to look out in a loving way for one another, making sure that they can survive too.
And it's funny because in the same debriefing that we were having yesterday, she also mentioned they were having a general assembly. It was Monday, and one of the girls in the Form 1s fainted. So I asked her, did they say why? And she said, because the young lady didn't have any breakfast. And she said that's not the first time. The same young lady, for that same reason. And it really brought a lot of thought because, and we've been saying it here before, again and again and again, we do not know what sacrifices people are making to send their children to school. We don't know what sacrifices these children are making to get to school on a daily basis. And that's what I really want to talk about, Mr. Bola. The sacrifices that these children are making. Forget the parents. Because as parents, it's our duty and our responsibility to make sacrifices for our children, right? We brought them in this world. We are supposed to make sacrifices to take care of them. But especially in this trying time of COVID-19, these children, Mr. Bola, are making a lot of sacrifices.
Of course.
A lot of sacrifices. There have been so many families displaced as a result of COVID-19. There are so many parents that are struggling to make ends meet. But at the end of the day, these children have to go to school. They want to go to school, and they will go to school by any means necessary. Because for some of them, it's so important to them that they do this. you know? And we don't know the circumstances under why the young lady didn't eat breakfast. But she might be the only one that fainted, but she may not be the only one that went to school that day without having a meal.
That's so true.
She may not be the only one that went to school that day that does not know how they're going to have a meal at the end of the week or at the end of the day or for the rest of the week. And this is the reality of the situation that we are living in. So while I do not feel sympathetic for the fact that public servants have not received their 4% increase, and I mean, anybody could quote me on that, and I do not care. I cannot feel...
No, you have to care.
No, I cannot feel sympathetic, Mr. Bola.
No, I can understand
that. They are asking for more when there are so many people out there who don't have anything.
No, I can understand you not having the sympathy because you are aware of what others are going through. That I understand. But the part where you say, I don't care, I know you care. So stop saying you don't care. The fact is, while I agree with you that our public servants must have some greater understanding, and many of them have. There are a handful of them, there are a few of them that have decided, come what may, say whatever you want, bring whatever facts you want to present to me. My issue is I want it and I want it now.
Yeah.
I don't care what you do to get it. I don't care how you get it. I don't care who get hurt in the process. I don't care who have to starve in the process. Give me, it belongs to me, and I want it now. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that every public servant feels that way.
Well, no,
not every
every
teacher feels that way. Not every policeman feels that way. Right? There are those who are genuinely understanding. They have an understanding of what the present situations are.
They do.
Right? And so I say that maybe we have to do more. Maybe government has to do more to establish or to expose the reality of what COVID has done to many families.
Yeah.
Maybe there are some of us who just doesn't see it because it has not hit us in the right spots as yet. We have not had a reason to go to bed without a meal. We did not yet, over the last 12 months, wake up one morning and there is nothing in the cupboard to provide breakfast for the young children. We probably have not yet, over the last 12 months, realized that there is not $1 in any pocket in the house to pay the bus for that child to go to school. So in our own minds and in our own little world and our own circles, things are hard, but it's okay. And so we take for granted that is the way it is with everyone else. Yeah. There are so many people out there who are walking on the bare skin under their feet, but they don't complain.
They don't complain.
They smile to you when they meet you on the road. They ask you how you're doing. They tell you have a wonderful day, and you take for granted that their situation is so good that they can wish you well. Their situation may be 10 or 20 times worse than yours. Yeah. They are just not complainers. They have learned, as my foreparents would have said, and my deceased mother, God rest her soul in peace, burn your belly and take it. Suck salt, as she used to tell us at one time, and live with it. There are people who still does that today, right? And while we may want to blame administration and blame everybody else, there are just some cases that they have not known anything about.
Yeah.
And they cannot do anything about because they're not aware of it. But our plea is that for those who continue to demonstrate that we need it and we need it now, please have some consideration. You know, and it's all well and good, and I can support those who are demonstrating and are having this protest and so. If they can point out absolute wastage in the service, you know, there are some wastages. There are some areas that the screws need to be tighter. There are some things that need to be done better. But the reality is, whatever little resources, which, by the way, on Friday I understood that the unions, particularly the teachers union and the government negotiating team, along with some members of the Ministry of Finance, had a meeting in which the accounts was brought to them, things was explained by the permanent secretary, Ministry of Finance, and so on. Still, at the end of it, the main speaker, the representative, who is the former president, I understand, of the Teachers Union, Mr. Andel, said, despite what they said or what we see, we are looking forward to have our 4% by May.
I also understand that in that meeting, it was also said that you could find $1 million to give to Promise to St. Vincent, and you could pay Grenada W.I, and they brought up all of the same things. Mr. Bola, this thing is so upsetting. I just don't know how to feel, because when you look at the situation holistically, and that's why we say you cannot look at it in a myopic view. You cannot just say, okay, well, we want our money because XYZ is done. Understanding the way in which a government runs a budget. They understand that, or at least we hope that they understand that, because these are the people that are educating our children. So we would hope that they understand that. Understanding how a budget is run, understanding how a country is run, understanding just basic economics, just basic accounting. I cannot see how they do not understand that you will get what you are promised. It is not something that we could say we're not giving to you. We are just saying now is not the opportune time for it. Now is not the time when we can say, okay, we can pull $1.3 million out of our pockets and give it to you. You know, because then the conversation will arise at the end of December. Oh, well, that's another $1.3 million is going to be added to well, it's not even 1.3 million, because it's going to be added to whatever it is that the increase is from that year, you know. So I do not understand. I cannot grasp why it is these union leaders are so myopic in their view, are so selfish in their decision, that they are not taking into consideration the repercussions of what their demands are going to do to a lot of people in our country. I cannot understand as a parent why I would sit and accept this kind of behavior, because my child is worth to me more than 4%. You know, and I cannot understand how, as a citizen of this country who pays the taxes of public servants, would sit and just take the fact that they are saying what you are paying in taxes is not enough to pay me, so pay more to taxes so that I could get more. Or as a citizen of this country, you are saying to me that the poor and vulnerable don't matter, so cut their programs and give me more of what I am already getting, or what I am sure of getting at the end of the month. I cannot sympathize with that. That hurts me. That burdens me. I cannot agree with this kind of behavior, not in any way, shape, or form. And I want to just read quickly, Mr. Bola, an excerpt from a message that was sent out by the union yesterday. Just an excerpt. It says here in its response. So the as a matter of fact, I'll read the entire thing, because
I think
it would
should.
It would give
the listeners a better appreciation
of what it is.
And please don't say that you can't understand, Ms. Duncan. You have to understand. Sometimes you deal with people that are critical thinkers, and you deal with people who are no thinkers at all. You know? You deal sometimes with people who have care and concern for humanity, and you deal with some others that don't care nothing, absolutely nothing about humanity. You deal with people that are possessed with love, that has, you know, a feel for what human life is, and there are those that are so stone cold that they cannot care. So you have to understand. Don't tell me you cannot understand.
It's hard to understand.
It's hard to understand, I will accept, but you can, because I know you have a heart.
So let me read this letter. It says, oh Lord, I'd have to decrease on the size a bit just to get everything. Right, so it says the Labour Commissioner met with the governmental negotiating team and the Grenadian Union of Teachers on Friday, the 16th of April, 2021, at the Ministry of Works Conference Room, Ministerial Complex. At this meeting, the Ministry of Finance presented a financial breakdown of the economic performance of Grenada for the period January to March of 2021. it must be noted that the parties agreed that this engagement would take place on the 31st of March. However, this was not honored. GUT also made a formal request for the documents through the Labour Commissioner, prior to the new slated date of April 16th. And again, this was not done. Instead, a PowerPoint presentation was made by the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Finance, which gave the union no time to effectively rebut. The presentation outlined a significant decline in the revenue performance and a sharp deterioration of the fiscal situation for the period January to March of 2021. However, our research has shown that there was a significant financial improvement in February, and in particular the month of March, in intake of government's revenue due to the payment of taxes, vehicle inspection, and license fees, in addition to other economic activities. GUT made a request for the presentation, but was promised that it would be sent at a later date. Following the presentation, the GNT, Government Negotiating Team, through Minister Oliver Joseph, stated that it is clear that the situation or the fiscal situation is not favorable. Therefore, government is unable to honor the agreement at this time. He promised that once there is positive growth, the union will be called to the table. In response, the Grenada Union of Teachers expressed disappointment with government's position and its utter disregard for collective agreement and the economic well-being of teachers. GUT stated that its belief that the government is not negotiating in good faith towards the resolution of this matter. Government has been making decisions that prove that they intend to allocate funds where they see fit, without committing themselves to their obligations to teachers and public workers. GUT further reiterates that it expects payments to its members on or before the 31st of May 2021. The Labour Commissioner declared a state of deadlock on this matter and indicated that he will study the issue at hand based on the arguments presented by both parties. He would make recommendations before the 30th of April 2021. The GUT awaits the submission of the Labour Commissioner. Until then, the GUT will brief its members and hold a series of meetings to determine the way forward. I have to take a deep breath before I sink my claws into this, Mr.
But there's a lot.
There's a lot.
A lot has been said, not a lot of new material, but a lot has been said. One is that there was a promise from the onset from the government that quarterly they would want to engage the unions. They would open up the books, they would bring all of the information, revenues collected, expenditures, and of course, the unions themselves can either accept or get the independent
economists to look at it.
Evaluators to look at it and evaluate. Now, so as they have mentioned in the letter, the promise was that they meet at the end of the quarter, so end of March. That didn't happen, and I suspect, from what I've heard before, that they had to, put all the things together, crunch the numbers, do what. Maybe 15, 16 days after is a bit late, and I would say to the government team and the government side, please, you need to be a little more focused, do it, and don't promise to do it immediately at the end of the month, but maybe 1 week into the next month, which gives you enough time to put everything together so that you can present it. Because government themselves have to do their own analysis, which I presume the Accountant General does on either a daily or weekly basis. But when you put everything together, you'll have a broad synopsis of what transpired over a 3-month period. So yes, there you had government being truthful to its word, saying, look, I'll give you the opportunity, come examine, see what it is like. Now, there's another important point that was made in the letter that the GUT believes from their own independent, that's what they said, research. But they did not bring figures. They did not say. I don't know if they have a document separate from that news release that can show. And even if you had a greater revenue collection in February as compared to January, what was the areas they highlighted?
Right.
licenses. You don't license vehicles for the whole year.
Every month for the year, yeah.
There are some periods, a 3 or 4 month period, when you do that. Some months, based on the number of the vehicles, would see far more vehicles being licensed than the month before. And we have consistently said on this program that there may be a month when government may be able to see sufficient revenue that can add the 4%. But here's what. It is not for a 1 month period. It is something that is consistent. 1.3 million every month in addition to what the government wage bill is already.
Yes.
So because there is a little spike in 1 month, what do you do the next month when your collection goes below
It must
the
be
expense?
sustainable, basically.
And that's what has been said.
Yeah.
When you reach a trajectory where you recognize you are sustaining a certain level over a period of time, you go down and implement because you know you can pay monthly, because you have to do it every month. So my little analysis is that the unions are still just playing games, right? And while they should not just accept every word government says like that, because there are unions, they have to continue with negotiations. They have to let the clientele or the constituents who are the workers believe that they are working on their behalf, because they do get the union dues for what they do. So they must show that they're doing something. But they have to become much more practical.
Absolutely.
They have to be more realistic.
But also, Mr. Bola, not to cut you,
But
what I
you did.
want, what I want the general public to also understand, that presentation that was put together by the permanent secretary, those numbers that were crunched and all of that data that was collected by public servants.
Of course, public servants.
The-
Who to have to get the 4%?
Exactly. The Minister of Finance didn't sit down and put together those numbers.
Yes.
He didn't pull them out of a hat. He didn't just go and say, okay, I'm going to just take this from that table and that from that table. And I'm going to show them that because that's what I want to accomplish. It is the same public servants that have to receive the same 4% increase that put those numbers together to hopefully add some common sense to the leadership of the union. That is what happened, you know. And I want the public to understand that. It wasn't let me not even say government, because
Ministers.
government is not, and I keep saying that, government is not 15 representatives. Government is a machinery. It is a body that works the public service. That's what government is. So when we speak about government, we're not speaking about 15 representatives only. We are speaking about a body of public servants who work under the leadership of government to give to themselves and to the rest of the country what we receive. So that information that was given to the leadership of the union was given to them by their own membership.
Prepared by their own members, prepared by public servants, prepared by people who themselves have to receive their 4%. Yes? So are you saying in essence, as a union, that you mistrust your own members? You mistrust the workers who you represent in the service because you're saying that you have information to the contrary. And I challenge them, the unions, so to speak, to bring their own findings.
Of course.
Bring it forward.
Of course.
Explain it to the Grenadian public. Show where your income contrasts with that of government, and where did it come from, and how comes you get that, and you know.
And I want to read the section again, Mr. Bola. I want to read it. This is a letter that was sent out by the Union of Teachers. And I want to read that section again that says, the presentation outlined a significant decline in the revenue performance and a sharp deterioration in the fiscal situation for the period January to March. However, our research has shown that there was significant financial improvements in February.
Yes.
Significant, but is significant enough to sustain you from February to December.
And give you your back
And
pay
give
for
you your back pay for January. And also, and in particular, the month of March, in intake of government revenue due to the payment of taxes that I and you and the parents and the children when they go to the shop and so on, we pay those taxes along with the public servants. Let's not leave them out, that they pay taxes as well. Vehicle inspections and license and fees. Now, these things are relative to economic activity. These things are relative to time. So, as you said, vehicle inspection only happens for a period. What happens after the period, after that period where there isn't that intake of revenue? Then taxes are also relative to the amount of money that people have in hand to spend
At a particular
time. So when you are saying, give me my $1.3 million and let's say cut off some of the social programs, or let's say send the Imani workers home, just speaking hypothetically, then it means that these individuals now have less money to spend, which means that government revenue intake is still going to be depreciated as a result of that. So at the end of the day, if you sit down and you look at this thing logically, if you look at this thing with an open mind and not just with a vendetta to say, I want to get government, I want to get at them. I want to show that they are incompetent. I want to show that the people that they don't care about the workers. Government cares about everybody, not just the workers. Government cares about the children. Government cares about the rest of the general public that are not covered under the public service. Those who have been displaced as a result of the lack in tourist activity. Those who have been displaced as a result of the lack of export, as a result of, in farming and agricultural produce. All of these people are displaced
I think
as well.
most sale of agricultural produce than a lack thereof.
Well, sale off.
Yeah.
So
there's
at
a lot
the
of
end
farming
of the
happening.
day, at the end of the day, government has all of these things to take into consideration. All you are concerned about is you, and that is unfair.
Well, it's not unfair to think about me. I mean, everyone should be thinking about themselves. So
But
it is
in
not
the current construct.
In the current construct, in thinking about yourself, you also have to take into consideration everyone else around you.
Everyone else around.
What is happening to them? How are they getting by?
Yeah.
And that is where the government role comes in, because the government have that responsibility. The unions look after the clients. They look after the constituents. The government look after everybody, inclusive of who the union looks after and the unions themselves.
Yeah.
Because some members of the unions are in themselves public servants who too have to get the 4%.
4%.
Right? So it is not just a cross-section, but government has to take the Ministry of Finance, the cabinet, when they sit to make decisions, have to consider everyone in the PTA.
Yeah.
And that's why I say, isolatedly, when you look at the PTA, it sounds feasible. It looks like government is not doing a good enough and a fair enough job. But when you you expand the lens and you look at every other thing that has to fit in, you realize in truth and in fact that while it is an obligation of the administration to fulfill it at this point in time is extremely difficult. And so that is what the government is hoping that the unions and of course the workers, public servants, or those who feel that they are obliged to, or they have a responsibility to demonstrate at this time, will come to the understanding that, you know what, let's not try to push a hard ball here, but let us recognize what the struggle is at this time, what the issues are at this time, and let us give some level of compromise to make sure that things run smoothly for everyone in this country.
Absolutely. I want to give an opportunity to the general public to chime in and to share their views and opinions. Guys, remember the number to call is 440-7377 if you're calling locally. If you are in the diaspora and you want to give us a call, the number to call is 347-329-3101. We have some comments on the live video. I just want to get through some of them. One individual is saying, good morning. I speak life into this young child and bind the spirit of suicide. She will live to her potential and to fulfill her purpose on earth. I pray an environment for her health in Jesus' name. Amen to that. Good morning, everyone. I feel safely touched by what I am hearing. Someone else is saying, we are all in this together. And it's not about what Grenada can do for you, but what you can do for Grenada at this moment. Guys, the lines are open. Feel free to call and to contribute to the conversation. Mr. Bulla, we're going to go back into that letter and try to break it down some more. it's just I'm just so lost for words in all of this. I want to just read this section right here that reads, in its response, the Grenada Union of Teachers expressed its disappointment in government's position and its utter disregard for the collective agreement and the economic well-being of teachers. I want to stick a pin there because we have a call coming in. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Ms. Duncan. How are you?
Hi, good morning. I'm fine.
Okay, I just want to be trying to see if you're discussing any particular topic in
I'm sorry, you're breaking up just a bit. We can't hear you quite clear.
yeah, discussing any particular topic?
Yes, we are. We're discussing the...
Okay, all right, then I don't want to jump over.
Okay, no problem. Okay, I guess that individual had something very specific that they wanted to
make mention of.
make mention of.
They sound like they are traveling, like they're on the road
Yes.
or something.
Yes.
And probably they have not been tuned into the program for very long.
We have another caller on the line. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Al. How are you doing?
Good morning, Mr. Mills. How are you?
I'm good like cuckoo.
You good like cuckoo? I tell you yesterday, all cuckooing good, eh?
But he's good as the good cuckoo.
You good as a good cuckoo.
You must tell her you're good as good cuckoo.
Well, good cuckoo is relative to the person's taste, but
You ate already.
If I ever ate cuckoo?
I said the one you ate already.
Yeah, I don't eat it very often. It is not a favorite food of mine, but I do. My wife likes it a lot, so she cooks it.
Cuckoo, if you come up here, I go eat that, eh?
No, I eat cuckoo. I do. Excuse me. Corn in general is not something that I'm very fond of.
You ever sit on it in the pot?
Yeah, man. I make cuckoo already. I cook it myself.
When they are bombing that time and the lady holding the cuckoo.
Yeah. They used to
Ever see
cook
that
it
already?
in early days in the little piece of copper.
Right.
In the yard out there, in them very early days, the same copper that you would use to make farin.
It's the same thing like how the waste go in the cuckoo go in the...
No talk about that now, man. Oh, shit. When them women had a little apron around them and
Yes, I don't know it.
and you know what they used to store it with?
A pallet.
A pallet. That's the name of it. A pallet.
Yes,
I
because
make
I know it.
I make some very lovely pallets
I used
myself.
to go in the bush and cut the piece of wood and make it.
It's a stick you used to cut, not wood, and you shape it
And
up.
I make it, you see,
Yes.
tomato a little wide
Yes.
and coming up to the top. It's
Yes,
wrong for
you
the
shape it
cuckoo.
up nice. When I do those that I make around Saraka time, I use sandpaper.
Sandpaper, yes.
Yes,
Very
and I
good stuff.
smooth it nicely, man, and it's good.
Hold it good, eh?
Yeah. Now, cuckoo is a very favorite food. It's a food that come from way back when, not losing the trend because we're speaking 4% and the increase, and that has a lot of value. We don't want to lose that thought.
You
But
make cuckoo and milk, excuse for cutting it. Cuckoo and milk, you chip up the cuckoo and you put cow milk in it.
no, I've never done that. We use the coconut milk to cook it, You put it and
Yes.
it has to be done on slow fire. And so what I want to ask you, Mr. Mills, you must have a recollection of that because it had been around in your time. The very old hand mills that they used to grind the corn in the early days that had two kind of handles, one on each side.
Yes.
And
you
a
stand
big
up-
funnel, and you have to tighten it to
Yes,
get
but-
it to grind finer with a rope.
I know, I used it already, my grandfather had one.
Your grandfather had one, boy. I wonder if there's any other existing in Carriacou still.
I know, but I could.
Yeah, even though it's not working, but somebody has one. It is a type of history that our people don't know about. As a young boy, I remember having to go. And sometimes when you tighten it to get a really fine grind, it is so tight that as you cannot turn it alone. You have one, you on one side and the next young person on the other side.
Now, when you tighten it, you have a piece of twine, you have to hold it tight and you're grinding.
And you're grinding? I know about those things. So I have a little background history about...
What fine you just give it?
Well, my recollection in those very early days, sometimes we used to give it 3 pass, 4 pass, we used to call it 3 pass to get it as fine as you want. But Carriacou still does the local corn. I bought some time ago when I was in Carriacou. It's a little more coarse than the imported one that we have now. And I think it makes a better cuckoo.
Yes, it's sure.
Yes.
But he can't be too far, you know.
No.
You know why?
When
Because whenever you go to the toilet and use the toilet paper, your probably back coming up.
Yeah, well, I don't put tell people on my back, no, Mr. Man. I don't know what you're talking about.
Backing up, but he's so fine. He's simple.
Yeah. Yeah. But cuckoo, it's a good food with a little callaloo and you
strong.
A little callaloo with okra and thing, and if you have a little.
You know what my grandfather used to do?
No.
You had 4 cows. When you say you go in the morning and mind the cow, you go down with 3 roll of cuckoo in a pan, and the milk in the cow in the pan, you have the roll of cuckoo inside it.
Yes.
So you milking, so you drinking the cow milk and eating the cuckoo, and the man live up to 96 years.
Well, if you do the same thing, you're going to live to 106. You're going to make 10 more years than him.
But I don't know cow now.
Oh, what a pity.
Yeah, but I know asking you to sponsor me too.
No, you're getting from St. Vincent now.
No, I'm talking to 2 cows.
Yeah, but I tell you, you're getting from St. Vincent now. They had them 3 for 10, they say, you know, like bears.
3, but what size?
I don't know the size, but they're selling out. I mean, if you know the guys around Carriacou had a boat and they could go up to St. Vincent, they're getting a lot of cattle now. St. Vincent have a lot of cattle.
Did you just say 3 for 10 like bears?
No, I mean not $10, but you're getting them in group now. When I go to a farmer, he's giving you everything. You have a bull, you have a mother, you have a young one, because they don't have place.
Three cattle for 10.
I say 3 for 10, but it really didn't mean.
No, I'm not looking at the price. I'm just looking at the reference.
Really rather cheap. I mean, it's unfortunate. We laugh a little bit about it, but because of the present situation
and their agriculture sector has been
well, it will be hit hard, the ash, and so no food for the animals. So they're trying to get rid of them, you know. So people are getting them rather cheap.
People in St. Vincent and them going on now?
I have not had the latest update between yesterday and today. I think Sunday there was a little eruption again. That's the latest I know.
It's about we have to I could see from here to Petit Matnik as far as I could see up there.
Yes.
Yeah, up there where whitish.
Yes, the ash. Yeah.
Yeah, the ash.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Mr. Mills, we want to continue with the conversation and give room to persons who want to call in and contribute. But we know we're going to hear from you again, not tomorrow, because tomorrow is postcab, so remember that.
Could I say good morning to a friend of mine?
Absolutely.
All right. Could I say good morning to Beverly James and the rest of the home circle?
Yes.
Curtis Mills in Bel Air. Hoping you all have a fantastic day.
Absolutely.
Right.
Great.
Right.
Good, Curtis.
Take care, my
Beverly
brother.
and family from Curtis Mills. Have a good one.
Right.
Take care now.
All
Bye-bye.
right, Mr. Bola.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Bola, I just as we were speaking, something just came to mind, and it's an appeal. Sorry, that I want to make to the leadership of the unions, all of them, not just Grenada Union of Teachers. Although they are most vocal, this is a situation that affects them all, and I want to make an appeal to them that maybe, just maybe, we can consider, instead of working against government in this time, that we could try working with them, finding ways that we could come out of this on top. Because at the end of the day, working with government would do for them exactly what they're trying to accomplish by working against them. It will do for them, and also it's going to help the rest of the country as well. So maybe we should just try, just for once, to not let this be a conflicting situation. Because they understand, very clearly in the letter, you can see it says that they understand that the situation is dire. They understand that there has been a deterioration in the fiscal situation.
And it is not for the first time.
Yeah.
Remember previously they did a letter in which they explained that they understand. And that government have given them sufficient evidence to show that there have been a decline in revenue collection.
Yeah.
So if you understand that, if you know that, if the government has been saying that to you repeatedly, there is a decline, we are looking at it, we are hopeful that there would be improvement sooner than later, and as soon as we can find a way, the improvement in revenue, it's sustainable, we can do the implementation. But in the meantime, here is what we will do. We'll give you an opportunity to peruse our books, to look at it, and to verify for yourself whether the government is at a position. But I don't know. If you're saying you understand and you know and the evidence is there to be seen, why are you continuing to insist? What else are you pushing for? What else are you after?
And
are you just after getting the 4% for the workers? Or is there something else that you're pursuing and you have not said so?
Yeah, it makes you wonder. And you know, the situation is so easy to understand. It's, let's say, for example, you go to the Grenada Cooperative Bank or whatever bank in Grenada and you said you want to take a loan, right? You take a loan and your payback amount is, let's say, $500 at the end of every month. That's what you're supposed to pay back to your loans officer, to the bank. And you know your business doing well, all of a sudden something happens and you're accustomed to making $1,000 a month, but you're not making $1,000. You're making $700 in January. You make $600 in February, but then you make $1,200 in March. But you're not sure if you're gonna make that $1,200 in April or in May or in June or in July to continue making payments and meeting all of your other needs. And that is the situation that government is currently in. Yes, there has been an uptick, but even if there is an uptick, is that uptick enough, or will it be sustained so that we can continue we can pay that 4% that we have to now pay every month because we've implemented it, and then meet all of the other requirements that we are supposed to meet as a government? That is a question that needs to be asked. Is it something that is sustainable? We have a call on the line. Good morning.
Good morning, Miss Duncan.
Good morning.
And good morning, Mr. Bowler.
Good morning to you, good sir.
No, Mr. Bowler, I'm a gentleman, so to speak, with common sense. You understand? So when people explain things to me, I try to break it down, on my level so I could better understand.
Great.
So this is my understanding. Because I find the government position is clear. And this is my understanding and my interpretation. Yes, government has an obligation to pay the 4%. The government have stated that they are committed to paying. But based on the economic situation at this time, the 4% is not possible at this time. Yeah. Now, you are permanently employed with a guaranteed monthly salary that the government have not defaulted on despite the serious shortfall in revenue. In other countries, the same set of workers are asked to take a pay cut, and in some cases, some people was made redundant. That has not happened in Grenada. There are so many people out of work that we cannot allow to fall through the cracks. What you are telling us is, give me mine, and to hell with the rest, including the guardians and parents of the children you are responsible for. Mr. Bola and Ms. Duncan, that is not a fight the union could win. And it's time they recognize that. Because asking for more in a crisis, while some don't have at all, it is just not winnable. It doesn't make sense. And just like Johnny Cochran said, if the gloves don't fit, you have to acquit. I trust you all will have a pleasant day.
You as well.
Thank you for that. We appreciate your analysis. But he said this is a fight that the unions can't win. I just want to say to the caller and to others, it's a fight that they don't have to put up at all.
Exactly.
There is really no need for the fight.
Yeah. Because
you have the government acknowledging on every occasion, be it the Prime Minister, the Minister for Finance, the lead negotiator for the government side, saying, we acknowledge, we agree, we are willing, we will pay. At no point in time had anyone in relationship to government, whether it's the permanent secretary, the minister, the chief negotiator for government, the prime minister, at no time they cannot, and there is no recollection or recording where any single one of them has ever denied it as a fact that they have to pay. Any one of them saying that we do not have a contractual arrangement with the unions, they have all admitted. But having admitted, they would have quickly said, at this time, just like the caller is saying, the economic situation does not put us in a place of strength.
Yeah.
Where one, we can implement, but two, sustain the payment. Three, we are concentrating on this time on making sure that we do not have to cut staff. We do not have to make anyone redundant. We keep everyone who is working. We'll try to pay them and pay them on time, month by month, throughout the pandemic up until this very time. The government has been doing that, right? But the government also said, listen, we have a lot of people who have lost their job, who are not in a position to fend for themselves anymore, who doesn't have a means of survival. So we also have to pull them into the equation at this time. Yeah. So bear with us for a little bit.
We have a caller on the line. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Ms. Duncan and Mr. Bola.
Hi, good morning.
Yeah, I've been trying to get through on this program via YouTube and Facebook for some time now, and I just not getting through because I have difficulties getting through by radio from my location. So
we
I
don't
just
know
had
what
to
happened.
pick up something on my cell phone and just see if I could have heard whether the program was on. However, I think I heard some of the things that you are discussing this morning. Mm-hmm. And as I would have said in time past, I really don't understand what is causing the our teachers and public officers not to be understanding the government's explanation.
I just want to tag you there for a minute and say, use the word some. Because we have quite a few of them, I believe, that are very understanding.
But it seems to me like it's a majority. Okay, but it's some. It's still some, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, somebody telling you, it's like you're having a conversation with somebody, you're explaining something to them, and the person saying, I understand, but they are doing the contrary. So in other words, they're saying they understand, but by the action, they say, well, you don't understand what you're saying. You understand and you don't understand at the same time.
Yes.
But you know what? People who are supposed to know better, people who are supposed to have a greater understanding, because the teachers, for example, is them we depend on to a large extent to teach our children and so on.
Yes.
So I expect them, as well as the public officers, to demonstrate understanding. I mean, the government has explained over and over. But even if the government or government officials didn't come out and explain the situation, even if the Prime Minister or the Minister of Finance or Mr. Honorable Joseph, would have explained over and over, but it's clear for all to see, given the situation that we are living in, the uncertainty and so on, and the fact that government has been collecting significantly, reduced amount of revenue. So where would the money come from to pay and to be able to sustain? It's not a one-off payment, If it was a one-off payment, probably they could have made this, bend over backward and make that one-off payment. But it's a payment that has to be sustained every month thereafter. So once that amount is paid, that 13.2 million is paid, then it has to be paid continuously thereafter. But some of us are not honest at all. Sometime last week, I think it was, a caller called, and I happen to know the caller. He's a retired person, retired a number of years now. So he would have been qualified for the old, the long sum and that kind of thing. So government pension, maybe even NIS, based on the time he would have exited the system. And he was saying that he was waiting on his 4% to pay his doctor fee to go to the doctor. And I know that is not true, and that kind, So people would forward all kind of argument. But on the contrary, the same people would say, Well, 4% is just $30-something, $40-something, $60-something based on how much you're working for. What that could do. But yet, you are saying that you're waiting on it. Unless you don't get it, you can't do. You're saying you cannot do anything, on the one hand.
Yes.
And on the other hand, you're saying if you don't get it, you can't do this and you can't do that and the other. So my appeal, as it has always been, for us to show understanding. First, I don't know, as we were saying, and maybe they would give one the impression that they have ulterior motives, and they are not genuine because they know that the country is not in a position to pay presently right now. And don't behave as though the money comes from the politician's pocket. It comes from the government's coffers. That's where the money comes from. And we are not blind. We can see. Come on. What are we seeing that would convince us that the government could pay the 4%? That is no problem. It's not a problem because some people speak like that,
Yes.
It's not a problem. They could pay the money and that kind of thing, I heard on another program sometime last week, one of the main opposition party, the NDC, had the representative on to the point. And every time I hear again, and people are supposed to know better, maybe I could be wrong. He could be right and I could be wrong, that the increase in cost of living, increased cost of living, and every day things are going up on the shelves, on the supermarket, and this and that and the other. And I wonder, I say, well, if there are no new taxes, except, the source of the materials, of the goods that we import, there is an increase from the source. That is also an increase in price. But for us to be saying every day prices are going up, is that really so?
There's one other factor. I don't think it is an everyday thing as they make it sound. They try to expand on this thing and make it a real big issue. It's always an issue when you go to the supermarket. What $5 bought 10 years ago, granted now it can't buy it. But
money value, yes.
So you have, as you correctly said, taxes, which has not increased over the last so many years. You have the cost of material, the source of manufacturing, but I think the factor that has influenced some price increase at this time is the cost of transportation. Freight, to my understanding, has increased in some significant ways over the last couple of months. So whatever you are paying to bring a container from Miami or wherever, it has increased, and definitely that will be passed on to the consumer. Nobody else then go pay it and say,
of course, the consumer.
So that's one thing that has increased factually and would have influenced some increase. In the case of the Caribbean agro, I believe the price of grain, the wheat and other things that they use to make the flour, had increased at the point of origin. So that too would have influenced some.
Even Trinidad, there were some changes in prices in Trinidad as well. And in fact, here we had a short notice, but in the case of Trinidad, it was almost immediate.
Yes.
But you mentioned transport, and of course you were talking about freight, bringing goods to and from Grenada. But as you mentioned transport, because I just want to address transport in general. But I'm not in general. I'm looking at our local transportation, inland transport. Mr. Bole, there is a situation that we need to address.
Yes.
This is a situation that we really, really need to address. If you have to leave St. Patrick's to travel to Grenville or to St. George's, and you have to reach for a particular time, you have to leave home much earlier based on what time you have to reach. You can't get anything done in the house before you leave. It just sickens the way this buses association or how these drivers and them. It's just, come on, it's overbearing. Sometimes you go on the bus, right? The waiting area for the bus is supposed to be the bus terminus. That's where the bus should be waiting. And anytime you leave the bus terminus, I don't see why you have to go up, wait 15-20 minutes on a bus stop, and go back down to the bus terminus. And sometimes they don't do that once, they do that twice and three times. That is unacceptable.
But I thought at the terminus it was like a first come, first serve basis. You line up and you go according to your turn. So the first bus in front is what should be filled.
That is how it should be. But it's a doggy-dog. Maybe in Grenville and St. George's it might be different. But sometimes it's a doggy-dog situation. You're speaking to the bus drivers, owners, conductors, and so on, and ask these people to organize themselves properly. And it would be in their interest, in their best interest, also in the interest of customers, of the customers, the traveling public, and so on. But to be subjected to that kind of behavior is just disrespectful, and sometimes they don't even say anything to you. You know, you're on the bus. You pick the bus on a bus stop, so you expect it going in a certain direction, and all of a sudden they just turn and go back down with you, not saying a word to the passengers on the bus, travelers. I mean, come on, that is unacceptable, man.
Well, I think there is something called the Transport Board. I know the Minister for Transport have been speaking about that, either the establishment or re-establishment. I don't know how far they are. And some of these issues are issues I think that they will be tasked with. How do we deal with those things? How do we get them to work better? And maybe if someone who is associated with the Transport Board is listening, should probably take that up, you know.
We really need, because if we're talking about development, we're talking about advancement.
Yes.
Transportation is a critical aspect
critical
of everything.
Yes.
You know, Mr. Bola, another thing is that we seem to be having an issue, a problem with the Ministry of Health and the COVID department. They give the COVID section of Ministry of Health that deals with it, especially with travels, you're coming from overseas. So they give a number or numbers that you could reach them by, reach the desk by, and then you call that number continuously and
no response.
And no response.
I think I've heard a complaint similar to that already.
That is a bit more, because I was because one of my daughters who were coming from vacation, and she's finally here. She came Saturday, and she had real difficulties, and I was trying to see how I could get help, and it was very difficult because I'm calling the number continuously, and no response. Before you call, you got that busy tone, you know. So it means that I don't know. So they have to.
It's something need to be looked at. We sometimes get in contact with one of the guys that is in PRH Health, Keville.
Yeah.
We'll do our best endeavor to get in touch with him and let him know, because I had, was it Friday, Miss Duncan? I had these two people who contacted me that were supposed to travel back to England over the weekend.
It was on Friday.
On Friday. And they had a similar complaint that they were trying to get through to inquire of something, and they've been calling and not getting any response at all. Nobody seemed either to be there. So I don't know if it is the lack of someone at the station to answer the phone. I don't know if it's a phone number that is not fully operational.
Maybe it's not operational, because what I can tell you is that when you call, before it rings, then you get a kind of busy tone. You know, it's like, you know, it's something like that,
I'm not sure what it is, but it is something that we would do our best to inform.
This is something that we need to address.
Yeah, it is too important an area where nowadays, especially with all of the travel restrictions and what have you need to have someone always available to give answers to people when they call with questions.
Yeah, because even with the form, I don't know what they could do about it. Even with the form, because I understand even for a child, well, it's one form, a standard form. And for example, like those children, like a child was just months old, 5 months old, and 1 5 years. But do you have to, because they don't do PCR, they don't do this rapid test, do they do it on them? So all of that, so the person was having problems. How do I fill that form? Because when they were trying to fill the form, I think online, they was getting problems there.
Okay.
Yeah, with that. But Mr. Boland, Mr. Duncan, you all are doing a good job, and continue to do that good job. Continue to inform us, inform the populace.
Well,
right, and share information with us, explain to us, try to get us to understand. And my appeal to not just the teachers and the public officers, my appeal to the populace, to Grenadians, to all of us, is for us to work together for the betterment of Grenada. You know, there was, I think, one American president, although I don't like to quote these people, that ask not what your
country can do for you,
but what you can do for your country.
Yes.
So, Mr. Duncan, have a good day.
We thank you for your contribution as per usual, and you enjoy the rest of your day as well.
There is a comment on the WhatsApp that reads, "A pleasant good morning, Ms. Duncan and Mr. Bola. The situation with the 4% brings to mind a spoilt child or spouse who wants something and wants it now.
Yes.
Does not matter what happens next. For instance, they want a car, get a loan to purchase it, knowing fully well that they won't be able to make payments. And then after some time, the car is repossessed. In this case, the government will have to sell an asset and continue making the payments. Let me just answer this. To continue making the payments, so they would go under. Sad situation in this country's political games playing in these unions. Thanks." We have a caller on the line.
Good morning, Mr. Duncan.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, morning, sir. Morning.
I just called to give us some information about the breakfast coming up Mountain. I want to send out the information. The St. George Northwest Executive Branch will be having a breakfast by Johnny Shop in Grand Mall. And all passengers, each and one of the passengers on the western side, you could just slow down to receive a lovely breakfast. Everything that you need and everything that is healthy to consume to make you continue to work hard and effective from 8 to 12.
Well, that's a good breakfast.
Which I think by 12 o'clock you mightn't need anything because
8 to 12.
we provide a lovely breakfast. So all passengers just passing on the western side, just slow down to receive your lovely lunch which each and every one on the western side, Morris, Hapiel, and the entire St. John Northwest, will provide some lovely breakfast. So, Mr. Buller.
But here, before you go, you say all passengers just stop and collect. So it's the Prime Minister giving away something. It's free.
No, well, you stretch your right hand and we stretch your left.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the way you say that, I plan already a passing on the western side 3 times for the morning just to collect it.
No, you could drop a change, you could drop a donation, and then you keep the change.
Yeah, so what's the cost of the breakfast, bro?
$12 and
12. 10 and 12?
10 and 12. We're getting cuckoo, fried jerk,
yeah,
big sausage cake.
You mean you could get all what you said in one box, or you have different choices?
Well, whatever you want, you may get in a box.
And then you give a price for it?
You get a price for it.
Well, I hear you. That's the way to do business.
So then, if you work with enough money, you don't get some money.
Yes.
But if you don't come here and you want to make a contribution towards that,
you still accept that.
So then Ms. Duncan could have to buy it, so she has to.
Okay. Don't encourage that, because you go make the lady ask me, hey, what do you think you have to give me for me to go and get my breakfast? I hear you, my brother.
Hey, Ms. Duncan, I'm Ms. Volando, zeroing on the 4%.
Go ahead.
I do believe we have to be considerate. We have to understand. Understand is key. Right? It is key to understand. I know sometimes in life, sometimes like we want something, but you know the situation, what's going on with mom. Mom may have some debt to pay, and then she said, well, yes, son, I promise you to get it for you. But not a matter that you don't know what's going on. You know what's going on. So all what mom is saying to you, son or daughter, I won't be able to get it for a month, or give me next month, which I will get it for. Which is I think you understand. And once you understand, that shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a problem. I mean, that's something like I saying to you, and then you don't understand, you don't see. But it is clear to see. I mean, every Grenadier know the situation right now in Greater Carriacou, people can show the wall. And if you, like I said, like you owe a farm, and you make an arrangement with that farm to pay $150 every month, and some difficulty comes where you cannot afford to do that. Principle is principle. You just stay up and you go and pay $100. You go to the person and say to the person, well, Mr. John, yes, I make an oath to pay you that, but due to the circumstances, I wasn't able to pay the $150. The $150, give me if I could pay $100. All right? So you see, you don't just do that, but it's 2 persons that come to an agreement to settle for that. So you go to the person and tell the person the situation. So if the person understands, they say understand, there should be no argument again. There should be no argument. Everybody should understand. I need to think that, okay, like you are not saying that you will not pay the 4%. Yes, I will pay. The government obviously they will pay. But already asking, based on the situation presently, it is we cannot afford to pay that presently. So just give us more time to pay. And I always say, no, we have to look out for one another. We have to look out for one another. We cannot only look out for ourselves. Because the Bible said we have to love our neighbors, we love ourselves. And if I know I have to get something in the expense of to take it from someone who I know I'm much better off, I have a conscience. Right? I do believe we should make sure everybody has a proper meal when they reach. Because one of the things that they say about cost of living going up. Well, cost of living going up for everybody. Right? It's going up for everybody. Because yes, I'm working. my wife might be working, but there's some people that they don't work. Husband are working, boyfriend, girlfriend are working. Where the government will reach out and help them. Okay, so when price go up, it don't only go up for those who working. It go for those who ain't working. Alright, so those who working, if they could buy 8 pounds of flour, 8 pounds of sugar, they might to buy about 5 pounds and 6 pounds. But then those who are not working, government cannot afford to. The government cannot afford to give they're not working. So right now the government have to look out for them. So if the little crocodile they were getting and the price of thing go up, if they have to buy 2 pounds of sugar, they might be able to buy 1 pound because what they getting next to nothing. Right? So I do believe people we have to understand. I don't people understand. If you say we understand, I don't see where it's problem should like again. Only there is some other motive behind. I always say people don't forget. You have to remember in 2008, 2013, we know what was the situation. That was the longest set of months in the year. 34 days, 33 days, 35 days. Right? But already government asking, just give them some more time. Because we have to look at the time, in all the state of coronavirus, people was home and government still used to pay them, you receive the whole salary. And I would say if the people was there in government in 2008 behind that, they should be ashamed of themselves. You should be stay clear from that. Because I remember there is one person who worked hard to see the government in office. And what was the result? They jail him. Seeking for the right of the workers. So we must not forget, we have to remember what happened between the government. And greater people, look at and see who is the government that really care and real government that love them and seeking for the interests of them. It's this government. So Mr. Buller, Ms. Duncan, you all have a wonderful day.
You as well.
Thank you, caller. A long time I didn't hear that word, the caller say they like a crocodile. I remember that word from a long time ago. But he made one interesting observation when he draw the scenario of you owing someone, having made an arrangement to pay them a certain amount, but things have changed economically and you need to go back instead of hiding away. And that is so important. It happens even with commercial banks.
Yeah.
You go and renegotiate. Sometimes banks give you moratorium. The way they say, well, okay, you don't pay for a couple of months because we understand what the present situation is, or they renegotiate your loan. Sometimes you even go back. And based on the situation, you were paying a loan at an interest rate of 9%, and then you go and renegotiate saying, this is the new situation that exists for me economically. What can you do to help me? And they say, well, let's look at it. They may be able to drop your interest rate from 9 to 7, and that's just using abstract numbers. I'm not saying exactly that's what they do. Or they say, we can now give you a reduction on your monthly payment because you have been paying, you have a track record of the. So we have to understand. This is exactly what the government is trying to achieve with the union, saying, look at our track record. We have paid consistently over the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
We have implemented on time what we have promised you. It is only due to this situation of the pandemic now, we are not in a position of financial strength where we can immediately implement. So bear with us a bit, give us some time, and we are going to take
And it's not so much implementation, because the implementation of the agreement happened in 2020 when the 4% was paid for the first year. It's just the sustainability of that agreement, 4%. Of that additional 4%. So government is basically saying, listen, we honored our agreement. We implemented in 2020 as we were supposed to. So in saying that government doesn't honor its agreements is actually very incorrect to say, because they did implement in 2020 as they had promised.
Right.
But it's just the situation has presented itself where they are not in a position to sustain that additional 4%.
And going prior to 2020, the government and the unions had a 3-year arrangement before for 10% at 3% 2017, 3% 2018, 4% 2019.
Yeah.
And that was implemented with absolutely no problem, So the track record of the government over the last couple of years has been excellent.
Yeah.
But there's a rationale now, there's a reason, and they have given the reason.
And they have, and the unions have expressed that they understand the reason.
So what is the
problem?
issue.
Yeah.
What is the real issue with the unions and the government?
It's definitely not an issue of government not honoring, because that would be incorrect to say. They have honored. It cannot be an issue where they are saying that government has the resources and does not want to pay, because government has outlined to them and they have accepted and acknowledged the fact that they understand that this is what has happened in the first quarter of 2020 that prohibits government from doing what they are expected to do for public workers. So really and truly, the question is, what is the true issue? Why is it that this is so contentious? Why is it that the unions are so adamant on the fact that government must pay and must pay now? Because the government isn't saying that they won't pay. They're saying you will get your money. As a matter of fact, you're getting your money with interest. Getting more than you expected to get.
Mm-hmm.
We just cannot give you what we have promised to give you at this point in time. And that is understandable.
There is something more that they're not saying to us.
Absolutely.
That's what I believe, and I may well be wrong, but prove me wrong.
Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, the ball is in their court, really and truly, because government has outlined to them the reasons as to why they cannot pay. It is their duty and responsibility now to outline to government the areas in which they can reallocate funds to pay them without jeopardizing other areas that need the funding, without saying to the Grenadian people, our lives are more important than yours. Our well-being is more important than yours.
But they have said that already in many ways.
Well, it's true.
They have said government should forget about assisting the airport to keep it open.
Yeah.
Which to me is a very, well, I shouldn't say dumb, but it's not something that I thought the union would say. They have said that, our brothers and sisters in St. Vincent and the Grenadine that is going through some of the toughest times now in their life, that our government and people of Grenada should not send out and stretch out a helping hand to them. We should not do anything whatsoever. Because
when they did so much for us.
But even if they never did for us, it is just the correct thing to do to help a fallen brother by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, since we were young in primary school, we sang that if you see your brother falling by the way or going the wrong way, just stop and say, give a helping hand, which is what they're doing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't understand sometimes whether or not the officials at the hem of the unions, whether they think about the things they're saying or they just say things for political expediency. The airport authority is a child of the government. It's a parastatal organization. Yeah. Of course, they run their own affairs, has their own board and management and should be independent.
Yeah.
But which parent has a child that has been living their own life and suddenly falls into a difficulty, economically or otherwise, and would bluntly refuse, as hard as things may be, to give a helping hand? The government doesn't have to make an apology for wanting to assist the hotel, because there's so many reasons why the airport needs to remain open and functional.
Yeah.
I mean, who represents the workers at the union at the airport, as a trade union? I mean, are they hearing what their own colleagues, brothers and sisters are saying? Where's this whole thing about solidarity with each other? Workers' solidarity only means that when you strike, I must strike with you?
Yeah.
What about when I'm down on my knees and I need your sympathy and your assistance?
And I need you to make a sacrifice.
And I need you to make a sacrifice to help me to get up. They're saying that, no, pay us, forget about the airport. So let those, how many workers at the airport, go home. And I will seek to get the information to see how many people would be out of a bread if the airport closed.
And it's funny.
And I'm talking now direct.
Yeah.
Don't talk about the taxi drivers and so on, other people who indirectly will be affected.
Yeah.
Where is the solidarity?
And it's funny, the unions here did express solidarity with the public workers of St. Vincent.
And then you still turn around in the other breath and say, why is the government trying to raise $1 million to help them? Pay me instead.
Rather unfortunate.
It is more than unfortunate.
Yeah.
I wonder sometimes how we operate, whether we have a conscience, and what is it we're really trying to achieve? That the question must be asked.
Yeah.
Because in one breath you're saying we are in solidarity with you, we understand your situation, we see what is happening. And then in the next breath you're saying, oh, my government should not assist. Oh, you should let the airport close. But what happens to the fisher folks? What happens to the farmers who wants their produce to get out? What happens to medication for the sick people who has to come into the island? And so many other functions that the airport have. You say so selfishly, all of those things are unimportant. They are not necessary, that government should take no interest in them, that the workers must go home and wonder where the bread will come from. I'm certain that the government hope and wish that they could have helped every single person in this country. Not now, but always. Yeah. Those who are out of work, the government would have liked to see them working, because it has two folds. One, for social security reasons, you're securing them, their livelihood and that of the family, but also you are ensuring that government continues to run and operate, because as people work, they are able to purchase more, they are able to do more things which bring taxes in, which would put you in a stronger position to pay the very people who have to get an increase now.
Yeah.
I sometimes wonder, how do we think?
Or if we think at all.
Or if we think at all.
Yeah.
Because the more economic activities that you have in the country, the more people that turns out to work, the more hotels and business places that open up, the more the airport, more flights come into the airport, and the more vessels that pull into the seaport, the more activities the country have. The busier the country becomes, zooming with activities of an economic nature, is the more revenue that is collected. Yeah. And it puts the government in a stronger position to implement your 4% now, to pay you your back pay, and to prepare for your another 4% that comes in 2022. So are we really thinking as workers? Are we really looking at the whole picture, or are we just looking at half the picture? Partially. We need to look at the entire picture, and we need to understand that economic activities are a chain reaction.
Absolutely.
When you start the motor up here and the chain starts spinning, it goes a million miles away, causing other things to turn as well.
Yeah.
So let's start thinking.
Yeah.
Let us show some understanding. Let us show sensibility instead of insensibility. Let us show that we have an understanding and an appreciation for the efforts that are being made. We don't necessarily have to like the government. We don't necessarily have to vote for them. But if the government is making a valiant effort to try to take corrective measures for things that are not so correct now, we should applaud them and encourage them, and probably show them where they have been misstepping and what they can do differently to ensure that you and what you have to get is secured.
Absolutely.
You know, I can't tell you don't ask for your 4%. That's your right. I can't tell you don't negotiate with government. That's your right. But what I want to tell you is, all of this noise and protest and trying to show up Grenada and show up yourself, there's no other part of the world where anyone, any union member, any worker, be it with government or private sector, is making a demand for salary increase at this time. Not at this time. They may have it proposed. They may do it a year from now, 6 months from now, when the situation improves and get better. But at this present time, I believe this section of workers in Grenada may be the only, I said may, with capital letters, and I'm underlining it, because I have not heard or seen anyway, or even hear someone speak to that, anywhere else in the world that is demonstrating and protesting for salary increase. So we'll make history for good reasons and for bad reasons. So I urge the public servants, those who are participating in whatever activity that does not paint a good picture of the industrial relationship in Grenada. Yeah. Think before you do what you are doing. You are not just hurting an individual or a party. You are hurting the country. When you stay out of the classroom and don't tend to the students, as some teachers are doing now, you are hurting an entire generation. When you refuse to perform on the job, you are hurting and boring holes in your own tires not somebody else's own. So let's think again. Let's go back to the bargaining table. Let's make sure that we show some level of understanding. Work with the government. And I honestly do believe that as soon as the situation improves economically, collections are better, that the government will implement. Because I recall asking the lead negotiator for government, if the government get to a position at any point in time where they may not necessarily be able to sustain 4%, but maybe 2%, would they be willing to approach unions with that? And I was told yes. As soon as they can see light at the end of the tunnel, even if it is 2% they can implement now and 2% at a later date, they will make that proposal to the union. So there is, in my opinion, a desire on the part of government for this reason and several other reasons, as we have explained before. Because the longer you wait, the more difficult it becomes for government.
Yeah.
You'd have to implement, you'd have to pay a back pay, and come January 2022, you'd have to implement another 4%. So the sooner government is in a position to do it, the sooner they will do it. This is what I firmly believe, and I speak that because I truly believe that. So I ask those protesting workers out there to stop for a while, come to 10, think again, and ask yourself, what is it I'm doing? Why am I following these people? Do I want to destroy the government, or do I just want my 4%? What really is your motive? Is there anything ulterior about it, or are you genuine in what you're saying and you're doing? And when you come up with the answer, I'll ask you to act accordingly. And I say to the union leaders, you have a role to play. You need to continue to fight for and on behalf of your workers. But not every situation that is deserving of a war.
Of a fight, yeah.
Because sometimes you can win the war, but you lose the fight.
You lose the fight. And of course, I want to make an appeal this morning, Mr. Bowler, mine on a more emotional side, to teachers in the various schools, wherever you are. We know and we understand that, you're fighting for your 4% and you have to be in solidarity with your unions that represent you to get your desired outcome. But in the process of doing that, please don't forget your students. They need you more than you know.
Especially in these times. They
need you more than you know. Now is really an opportunity for you to pay close attention to them. Look for the signs, look for the signals that they are sending out to you, those unspoken cues that they are putting out there in the atmosphere that we are not picking up on because we are too busy fighting for something else. I don't want to say not worth it, but something of lesser importance than the well-being of the students that we represent. Please, I am begging. I would really, really hate to hear or to be in a position where I missed something so important and I could have made such a big difference, but I was too busy punishing the same students that need us for something that they are not even a part of. So I want to appeal to them to pay very close attention to your students. Some of them are silently crying out for our help, and some of them are not even doing it silently anymore. So and this is my appeal.
Well, that's a good appeal, but we also need to remind parents that they have to double up on their
yes.
The approach with the children, they have to be a lot more steadfast. Their eyes have to open up a little bit more, because it's really a troubling time. There are a lot of things that probably students are accustomed to getting at home or at school that they can't know because you are in a much more difficult situation economically. You need to spend more time. You need to have more conversation. You need to assure and reassure your students, your children, that despite what is happening, despite the effects it is having on them academically, that you are always there, you would always care, you would always love, and that we're going through a tough phase, but you believe and you want to guarantee them that things will get better someday, that you need to work with them. And of course, it is very difficult for a lot of families out there, for a lot of people. Our heart goes out to them as we pray and continue to pray for safekeeping of our brothers and sisters in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So too we must pray for deliverance from the problems that we are having here in Grenada, economically and otherwise. We are in a slightly better place than some of our brothers and sisters in the region, but we cannot take for granted that we will continue to be there because, as was said by the people from finance, things are still deteriorating slowly. We are holding our own, steadfastly, but we can get to the stage where we too may have to come. And I really hope not. I really hope that it can only climb and get better from here onwards. But there's no telling what can happen in the near or distant future. So Grenadians, let's put our hearts and hands together, continue to pray, continue to be thankful for what we already have, but of course asking the Master to continue to bless us and to show us the way to make things better. It was a pleasure being here with you today. We do appreciate all of the comments. While we were unable to read every single one of them, we are happy for all the calls, for the contributions, for all those who have just listened and probably nod your head in approval of what we said or made a little choop because you wasn't in sync with something we said, you disapprove it. We have no difficulty with that. As we say every day, we are not the repository of all knowledge and information. And if we have said or done something that you are not totally happy with, feel free. Send us a line, whether it's WhatsApp or any other means you're using, or maybe you can give us a call, let us know. Some of you do speak to me when you meet me on the street by the supermarket one-on-one. We do appreciate that too. Sometimes you don't feel comfortable talking on the phone, you want to drop us a line. Please do that. We'll accept it. We know that all we want to do is bring you factual information that will be healthy and helpful by our means that we are doing it through Hard Talk. But we also understand that we do not know everything. So we depend on you to continue to assist us with your constructive criticism and with the information that you have. So please do enjoy the rest of Tuesday. Tomorrow, hopefully, it's planned for post-cabinet. So we may not be on air because we normally carry the post-cabinet live. Have a good evening, everyone.
All right, guys, we've come to the end of our program for today. As we say here every day, in whatever you say and whatever you do, be safe and be secure. We always want to be talking with you, but we do not ever want to be talking about you. So please do enjoy the remainder of your day and stay tuned for the National Report. It's been a pleasure, guys.
Government reaffirms commitment to provide affordable housing for Grenadians. Details to this story and more in the National Report. With the details to the news for Monday, April 19th, 2021, I am Abigail McIntyre. Government has reiterated its commitment to provide affordable housing for Grenadians. A ribbon-cutting ceremony was held on Friday at the Chinese Low-Income Housing Project in Diamond, St. Mark. It is one of 5 sites in Phase 2 of the project, under which 647 units will be constructed. Prime Minister Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell said the project further demonstrates the strength of the relationship between Grenada and the People's Republic of China. It is further evidence that Grenada is on the right track with the One China policy.
We have always said our role in government is about building up our people, improving the life of the people of the country. So when you talk about the quality of life of our people, you have to talk about the delivery of social services as a factor. Because in every country, there are poverty. There are people who need government support.
Minister for Housing, Honorable Delma Thomas, says government remains committed to its promise to ensure that low-income families can afford a comfortable home.
While we are speaking about the Chinese housing here today, and while we are in COVID and government is raising less revenue, we are committed as a government and we continue to provide support for housing assistance for many needy families across the tri-island state of Grenada, Carriacou, and PD Martinique. We also launched an initiative of providing in-house bathroom and toilet for needy families, even in this time of pandemic when government revenue is very low. We are committed to providing and working along with the very poor and vulnerable persons of our tri-island state of Grenada, Carriacou, and PD Martinique.
Parliamentary representative for the constituency, the Honourable Dr. Clarice Modeste Kerwin, says it is the belief of her government that adequate housing is one of the greatest needs, not only in her constituency.
Great efforts have been made to satisfy that need, and we have accomplished quite a lot. And still we see the needs. But this 130 units would take us a long way to satisfying the needs in this community. You would have to pay quite a lot to live on the mountaintop and to see the view of the sea, to have the rivers nearby, to be so close to nature. But our government, and of course, through the partnership and the generosity of the People's Republic of China, we have made that possible. And I want to thank you very much, Ambassador Wei, and please convey our deepest appreciation in that regard.
Resident Chinese ambassador, His Excellency Wei Hongxing, says it feels good to know that families will be made more comfortable, especially during these challenging times.
With the completion of St. Patrick site in November last year, and now St. Mark site, we are expecting the other 3 sites in Carriacou, St. David, and Bessejur to be completed respectively in the coming months. Dr. W.I, Honorable Prime Minister, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 pandemic has caused severe impacts on the entire world, and both China and Grenada are facing unprecedented challenges and difficulties. Today's progress does not come easy. The Phase 2 housing project feels the impact of COVID-19 as well. Construction work was once suspended and shipment of materials were delayed because of the outbreak of the deadly virus last year.
Grenada has joined forces with the regional security system to assist St. Vincent and the Grenadines, whose residents continue to face the threat of the La Soufrière volcano. 10 officers, 2 sergeants, 2 corporals, and 6 constables were deployed to St. Vincent and the Grenadines on Sunday via the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force Coast Guard. Superintendent Vanny Cohen, head of the RGPF's Community Relations Department, says once there is a need for security, the deployment efforts will continue. He spoke with GIS about the roles and responsibilities of the officers.
8 of these officers will be deployed directly to the RSS Response Security Force, while 2 of the officers will augment the CDMA, Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency. This deployment is on a rotational basis. They will be rotated every 3 weeks. So they are in St. Vincent for 3 weeks, and at the end of these 3 weeks, another set of officers, another team, another deployment will be made, giving everybody an opportunity to serve for as long as we need to be there. While in St. Vincent, there are various roles and responsibilities that they are expected to take on. Currently, as I speak, there is not much of a security challenge in St. Vincent, but in every situation, in every chaotic situation, we do expect security challenges. And the RSS is preempting that there likely will be such challenges. And so, we are going ahead of time to ensure that whatever likely to come, we are well positioned to be able to defer those challenges.
This is the National Report. More news after the break.
COVID-19 spreads from person to person through the droplets that are produced when someone coughs or sneezes, which makes it easy to spread between people in close contact. Now let's get prepared to stay healthy. To reduce your chance of catching or spreading COVID-19, practice these simple everyday preventative measures. Droplets can also land on surfaces, so ensure that you wash your hands frequently for a minimum of 20 seconds or sing the happy birthday song twice. Avoid touching your face, especially your eyes, nose, and mouth. If soap and water are not readily available, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer with an alcohol content between 60 and 90%. 70% is ideal. When you cough or sneeze, cover your nose and mouth with a flexed elbow or a tissue. Dispose of the tissue immediately and then wash your hands. If you notice someone has a fever and cough or other symptoms of respiratory illness, avoid close contact when possible. Let's all do our part to ensure that each and every Grenadian remains healthy. Our health is our collective responsibility.
Welcome back. Prime Minister Dr. The Right Honourable Keith Mitchell has welcomed the planned return of St. George's University SGU students for the upcoming semester. The True Blue-based university has announced that it will welcome back all students in the School of Medicine, School of Veterinary Medicine, School of Arts and Sciences, and School of Graduate Studies for in-person learning on campus for the August 2021 term. Dr. Mitchell, who held the post of Finance Minister for several years, said SGU's return will be a significant boost for the local economy. He said SGU accounts for a major part of the country's GDP. The return of students and the resumption of full-scale on-campus operations will therefore significantly boost economic activity in the country. The university's existence has also created a need for many ancillary services, so its return to operation will similarly spur activity in the services sector. The repatriation of SGU students last year at the start of the pandemic significantly impacted the accommodation sector, the farming community, and supermarket operations, among other areas. The Prime Minister said the return of students will bring welcomed relief to affected persons. I have personally heard the complaints from property owners, business operators, farmers, and many others who felt the brunt of the impact of the departure of students. Quite understandably, for some, their entire livelihood depended on the services they provided to the SGU community, and therefore the financial impact was significant. It will certainly be a relief to them to have the students return, he said. Grenada and Cuba have committed to further strengthening the ties that bind the people of both countries. The commitment came during a ceremony to mark 42 years of diplomatic relations between both countries, having established diplomatic ties in April 1979. Cuba has assisted in Grenada's development in the construction of this country's international airport, expansion of the general hospital, health, and in education. Prime Minister Dr. The Right Honourable Keith Mitchell said Grenada remains committed to its long-standing relationship with Cuba and looks forward to continued diplomatic relations that will benefit both countries. He also made reference to the late President Fidel Castro, who he said believed in lending assistance to develop the Caribbean region.
Here is a man who was not just somebody who was about government and politics, but was a human being who cared deeply about people and the sacrifices that he was making for the Cuban people was not seen just for the Cuban people, but he saw it as for human beings, period. And I remember him saying to me the sacrifices of the Cuban people for medical professionals and so on, and for third world country, the Caribbean, Latin America. His vision was that when they reach back home, they will not join the rat race of materialism, but they would help to use that contribution and education to help develop their society and to lift the lives of the poor people in their individual countries. And I think it's something that we need to remind all our friends, brothers and sisters who have got the support of the Cuban government and people, because at the time, Cuba was they will continue to make sacrifices in probably the worst time.
Cuban Ambassador Areda de la Caridad Guerrero reiterated her government's commitment to the people of Grenada, reminiscing on the cherished memories and accomplishments shared to date.
Our relation is based on the principle 1. Mutual respect, solidarity, no intervention in internal affairs, cooperation, and collaboration, and also commitment. This is why Cuba and Grenada have an excellent relationship. We can mention several examples of the bilateral cooperation in different areas, such as education, culture, agroindustry, among others. But we are sure that the majority of Grenadians remember our modest contribution in the construction of the international airport in Point Salin, now the Maurice Bicho International Airport. It will forever be a symbol of friendship among our peoples.
And that story brings us to the end of the National Report for today, Monday, April 19th, 2021. To recap the top story, government reaffirms commitment to provide affordable housing for Grenadians. On behalf of the entire news team here at the Government Information Service, I am Abigail McIntyre. Thank you for joining us.